The shooting across the street broke out again, but I give no heed because I weren't going to let him get away from me again. I run him down the gully about 100 yards and catched him, and taken his pistol away from him, but he got hold of a rock which he hammered me on the head with till I nigh lost patience with him. But I didn't want to injure him on account of Judith, so I merely kicked him in the belly, then throwed him before he could get his breath back, and sawed on him, and says, "Blast your hide, I apologizes for lambing you with that there cuspidor. Does you accept my apology, you pot-bellied hoss thief?" "Never," says he, rampacious. "A Granger never forgets." So I taken him by the ears and beat his head agin a rock till he gasps, "Let up! I accepts your apology, you deleted expletive." "All right," I says, a-rising and dusting my hands, "and if you ever goes back on your word, I'll hang your mangy hide to the—" It was at that moment that Emerson's General Store blew up with a ear-splitting bang. "What the hell?" shrieked Uncle Jabez, staggering, as the air was filled with fragments of groceries and pieces of flying timber. "Aw," I said disgustedly, "I reckon a stray bullet hit a barrel of gunpowder. I aimed to move them barrels out of the line of fire, but kind of forgot about it." But Uncle Jabez had bit the dust. I hear tell he claims I hit him unexpected with a wagon pole. I didn't do no such thing. It was a section of the porch roof which fell on him, and if he'd been watching and ducked like I did, it wouldn't have hit him. I clumb out of the gully and found myself opposite from the Diamond Bar. Bull Crogan and the hunters was pouring out of the dance hall whooping and yelling, and Joe Emerson was tearing his hair and howling like a timber wolf with a bellyache because his store was blowed up and his saloon was shot all to pieces. But nobody paid no attention to him. They went surging across the street, and nobody seen me when I crossed it from the other side and went into the alley that run behind the saloon. I run on down it till I got to the dance hall, and sure enough the cannon was stuck in the back door. It weren't wide enough for the wheels to get through. I heard Crogan roaring across the street. "Poke into the debris, boys. Elkin's remains must be in here somewheres unless he was plumb dissolved." That crash! They was a splintering of planks, and somebody yelled, "Hey, Crogan's fell into a well or something." I heard Joe Emerson shriek, "Damn it, stay away from there! Don't—" I tore away a section of the wall and got the cannon loose and run it up to the front door of the dance hall and looked out. Them hunters was all ganged up with their backs to the dance hall, all bent over, whilst they was apparently trying to pull Crogan out of some hole he fell into head first. His cussing sounded kind of muffled. Joe Emerson was having a fit at the edge of the crowd. Well, they'd loaded that there cannon with nails and spikes and lead slugs and carpet tacks and such like, but I put in a double handful of beer bottle caps just for good measure and touched her off. It made a noise like a thunderclap, and the recoil knocked me about 17 foot, but you should have heard the yell them hunters let out when that hurricane of scrap iron hit 'em in the seat of the britches. It was amazing. To my disgust, though, it didn't kill none of 'em. Seems like the charge was too heavy for the powder, so all it done was knock 'em off their feet and tear the britches off of 'em. However, it swept the ground clean of 'em like a broom, and left 'em all standing on their necks in the gully behind where the store had been, except Crogan, whose feet I still perceived sticking up out of the ruins. Before they could recover their wits, if they ever had any, I run across the street and started beating them over the head with a pillar I tore off the saloon porch. Some, such as was able, ariz and fled howling into the desert. I hear tell some of 'em didn't stop till they got to Dodge City, having run right through a Kiowa war party and scart them poor Injuns till they turned white. Well, I laid holt of Croghan's legs and pulled him out of the place he had fell into, which seemed to be a kind of cellar, which had been under the floor of the store. Croghan's conversation didn't no ways make sense, and every time I let go of him he fell on his neck. So I abandoned him in disgust and looked down into the cellar to see what was in it that Emerson should have took so much to keep it hid. Well, it was plumb full of buffalo hides, all corded into neat bundles. At that Emerson started to run, but I grabbed him and reached down with the other hand and hauled a bundle out. It was marked with a red Circle A brand. "So," I says to Emerson, impulsively busting him in the snout, "you stole old man Hopkins' hide yourself. Perjuice that mortgage. Where's that old man's wagon and team?" "I got 'em hid in my livery stable," he moaned. "Go hitch 'em up and bring 'em here," I says, "and if you tries to run off I'll track you down and sculp you alive." I went and got Captain Kidd and watered him. When I got back Emerson come up with the wagon and team, so I told him to load on them hides. "I'm a ruined man," snivelled he. "I ain't able to load no hides." "The exercise'll do you good," I assured him, kicking the seat loose from his pants, so he gave a harassed howl and went to work. About this time Croghan sat up and gaped at me weirdly. "It all comes back to me," he gurgled. "We was going to run Breckenridge Elkins out of town." He then fell back and went into shrieks of hysterical laughter, which was most hair-raising to hear. "The wagon's loaded," panted Joe Emerson. "Take it and get out, and be quick." "Well, let this be a lesson to you," I says, ignoring his hostile attitude. "Honesty's always the best policy." I then hit him over the head with a wagon spoke and clucked to the hosses, and we headed for Panther Springs. Old man Hopkins' mules had give out halfway to Panther Springs. Him and the old lady was camped there when I drove up. I never seen folks so happy in my life as they was when I handed the team, wagon, hides, and mortgage over to 'em. They both cried, and the old lady kissed me, and the old man hugged me, and I thought I'd plumb die of embarrassment before I could get away. But I did finally, and headed for Panther Springs again, because I still had to raise the dough to get Glaze out of jail. I got there about sunup, and headed straight for Judith's cabin to tell her I'd made friends with Uncle Jabez. Aunt Henrietta was cleaning a carpet on the front porch and looking mad. When I come up, she stared at me and said, "Good land, Breckenridge, what happened to you?" "Aw, nothing," I says. "Just a argument with them fool buffalo hunters over at Cordova. They'd cleaned an old gent and his old lady of their buffalo hides, to say nothing of their hosses and wagon. So I rid on to see what I could do about it. Them hairy-necked hunters didn't believe me when I said I wanted them hides, so I had to persuade 'em a leetle. Only thing is, they is saying now I was to blame for the whole affair. I apologized to Judith's uncle, too. Had to chase him from here to Cordova. Where's Judith?" "Gone," she says, stabbing her broom at the floor so vicious she broke the handle off. "When she taken them pies and cakes to your fool friend down in the jailhouse, she taken a shine to him at first sight. So she borrowed the money from me to pay his fine. Said she wanted a new dress to look nice in for you, the deceitful hussy. If I'd knowed what she wanted it for, she wouldn't have got it. She'd have got something across my knee. But she paid him out of the jug, and what happened then?" I says wildly. "She left me a note," snarled Aunt Henrietta, giving the carpet a whack that tore it into 6 pieces. "She said anyway she was afeared if she didn't marry him, I'd make her marry you. She must have sent